So, what if I told you there's a 4,000-year-old story that's shaped our world in ways you might not even realize? We're diving into Judaism, a tradition that is so much more than just a religion. And to really get it, we need to start with a pretty fundamental question. What in the world is an ethno-religious group? Yeah, it might sound like a super technical term, but trust me, it's the key that unlocks the entire concept of Jewish identity. Because in Judaism, you see, faith and family, belief and belonging, they're completely intertwined. It's not just about what you believe, it's about who you are. And there you have it, plain and simple. Being Jewish means being part of a people, a shared culture, and a religion, all woven together. One scholar, Daniel Bayarin, put it perfectly. He said, Jewishness disrupts the very categories of identity because it is all of these, in dialectical tension with one another. It's a shared heritage and a faith, and you just can't separate them. Okay, so to really understand this unique identity, we've got to go way back in time. And this isn't just some dusty history lesson. It's a living story passed down for thousands of years that shapes Jewish life right now, today. At the very heart of this story is this incredibly powerful idea, the covenant. According to the Torah, God makes this profound promise to a man named Abraham. And we're not talking about just any old agreement. This is the spiritual and historical bedrock of the Jewish people. It establishes this eternal bond between God and every single one of Abraham's descendants. So let's trace this journey for a second. It all starts with that covenant with Abraham. Then comes one of the most famous stories ever, the Exodus, where Moses leads the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt, turning them into a nation. For centuries after that, their identity is centered on two incredible temples in Jerusalem. But then, a huge turning point comes in the year 70 CE, when the Romans destroy the Second Temple. This was a catastrophe, and it marks the beginning of the diaspora, the scattering of Jewish people all across the globe. And that reality would define their existence for the next 2,000 years. So you might be wondering, how did this identity survive for centuries without a central temple or even a homeland? Well, the answer is in the books. You see, Judaism is built on this really unique system of a written law and an oral law. This is what's so fascinating. On one side, you have the written Torah, which you might know as the Tanakh or the Hebrew Bible. Think of this as the what, the core laws from God. But that's only half the picture. On the other side is the oral Torah, which is all about the how. It's this massive, multi-generational debate and conversation among scholars about how to actually apply these laws to real life. This incredible conversation was eventually written down in the Talmud, a text so important, so vital, that it essentially became the portable homeland for the Jewish people. And that brings us to a really crucial point. This isn't just about ancient texts. This entire system of law and interpretation is called halakha, which literally means the way to walk, and it shapes pretty much every aspect of daily Jewish life. Let's take the famous dietary laws, kashrut or keeping kosher. This table breaks it down pretty clearly. For a mammal to be kosher, it has to have two specific signs, split hooves, and it has to chew its cud. That's why cow is kosher, but a pig, which doesn't chew its cud, is not. For seafood, it needs both fins and scales, which is why salmon is in, but shrimp and lobster are out. These rules are a daily reminder of that covenant, a way of bringing a little bit of holiness into something as ordinary as eating. Jewish life is also a journey that's marked by these really distinct rites of passage. For a baby boy, it begins on his 8th day with a brit milah, or circumcision, which physically marks his entry into the covenant. Then, at 13 for boys and 12 or 13 for girls, the bar or bat mitzvah celebrates them becoming adults in the community. And from the absolute joy of a wedding to the structured, solemn rituals of mourning, these moments connect a single person to the entire sweep of Jewish history. And, just like life has its rhythm, so does the year. The Jewish calendar is this beautiful cycle of holidays that basically lets you relive the highs and lows of Jewish history year after year. The most sacred time of the whole year is the High Holy Days, which happens in the fall. It kicks off with Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, which is a time for some really deep personal reflection. This 10-day period builds up to Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. This is the holiest day of the year, a very solemn day spent fasting and praying, trying to mend our relationships with God and, just as importantly, with each other. Then you've got the 3 great pilgrimage festivals, where history isn't just something you remember, it's something you actually relive. In the spring, Passover celebrates freedom from slavery in Egypt. A bit later, Shavuot marks the exact moment the Torah was given on Mount Sinai. And in the fall, Sukkot commemorates those 40 years of wandering in the desert. Each holiday is this powerful, immersive link to a foundational moment in the Jewish story. But here's something that's absolutely key to remember. Judaism is not a monolith. Not at all. Within this one shared story, there's an incredible diversity of belief and practice. So that brings up a really fundamental question. Who is a Jew? Traditionally, the answer is based on what's called matrilineal descent. Basically, if your mother is Jewish, then so are you. Or, of course, you can formally convert. But even this is a point of discussion. For instance, some modern movements, like Reform Judaism, also recognize kids of Jewish fathers as Jewish, as long as they're raised with a Jewish identity.
This diversity really shows up in the major modern movements. You can kind of think of them as different branches on the same ancient tree. Orthodox Judaism is the branch that sticks most closely to traditional Jewish law. Conservative Judaism sees that law as still binding, but also evolving over time. And Reform Judaism puts a greater emphasis on the ethical teachings rather than the ritual laws. All of them grow from the same roots, but they definitely reach for the sky in different ways.
This chart of Jewish Israelis really shows this spectrum in action. And what's amazing is that almost half identify as Hiloni or secular. For them, being Jewish is all about a cultural or national identity, not really a religious one. Then you have the Masorti or traditional, and the Detzi and Haredi, the religious and ultra-Orthodox groups. It just goes to show you there are so many different ways to be Jewish, even in the Jewish state itself. So today, the global Jewish population is just over 15 million people. Now, to put that into perspective, that's less than 0.2% of the world's population. It's a tiny fraction. And the vast majority of those 15 million people live in just two countries, Israel and the United States. So you have this ancient people, relatively small in number, scattered all across the world, but somehow profoundly influential. And this brings us right back to where we started. The story of Judaism has always been this kind of dance between permanence and change, between a sacred, unchanging text and the constant lively debate about what it all means in a changing world. It's a 4,000-year-old conversation that's still happening today, in millions of different ways. The only question is, what will its next chapter be?